Thanks for tuning in to the Inside Commerce podcast hosted by me, James Gett, and Paul Rogers. Today's topic is an exciting one. You will have heard, unless you've been living in a bubble in the ecom world. End of last week, Shopify announced its winter editions, packed full of lots of really interesting product feature announcements, both on the, customer-facing side for business admins and also for developers. We're sitting down today with the senior solutions engineer at Shopify, Ben Homer. I'll introduce in a minute. Some of you will know him, obviously. He's been on the podcast before. And we're going to focus in a couple of very specific areas that we know people have got lots of questions about, which is around Agentic, AI tooling, and the rollout of capability within the platform. So let's get introductions done and out of the way. Ben, so for those who've not met you before, do you want to give people a flavour for who you are and what you do at Shopify?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, James and Paul. I'm Ben, as James said, solution engineer. So I support new businesses who are evaluating Shopify, some of the larger ones across Northern Europe, evaluating Shopify, and then through the implementation process. So really from a sort of a technical and functional perspective, I suppose. I've been at Shopify just over 3 years at this point, and was working in an agency before as well. So been in the Shopify world for coming on 9 years. So seen a lot of evolution of the platform.
Great. And then I'll ask the first question. Feels like ages since you and I have done one of these together, James. But yeah, glad to be back. But yeah, I'll ask the first question. So obviously today we're going to talk about editions, and I think over the last few months there's been a huge amount of talk in the industry around the level of kind of investment that Shopify is putting into AI and the kind of some of the stuff that is likely existing behind the scenes. And obviously we got to see quite a lot of that in editions. Can you just talk us through kind of your view on kind of where Shopify is going from an AI perspective in platform?
I mean, I think we have made clear that we're sort of all in on this at this point. We talked, James, you and I talked last time about declarative commerce, but really, I think we're kind of, there's like two prongs happening here, right? One is we are continuing to build and will continue to build native capability and customizability into the platform, and call that the like, dare I call it the traditional arm of Shopify as software, and that's not going anywhere anytime soon, right? The other whole new arm that is really gaining pace now is the agentic side, that mainly around Sidekick and all of the AI capability, and that like really the sort of the core fundamental is enabling agentic commerce and helping businesses show up to that whole new world that is growing rapidly, as well as the operational side. So just making Shopify interactable via natural language. So increasingly you can control Shopify and manage your store and your entire commerce capability via natural language with Sidekick.
Great. And then obviously you've got the kind of in-platform side and agentic side, as you say. The other kind of big area that is massive in the industry at the moment is the kind of connections to the LLMs and the kind of agentic commerce side. And I think it's probably 4 or 5 weeks ago that you first announced the OpenAI kind of partnership, or kind of being a part of that launch for OpenAI. But there's a lot more on this within editions. So yeah, can you talk us through kind of where that is and how you see that kind of progressing?
So the key thing in editions from that perspective is us announcing that we are going to roll out access to the catalogs API to all developers. So what that means is you will be able to build tooling that can access Shopify's, all of our merchants' catalogs if they're opted in, and all of the products there. So if you think about the sort of potential for that and how it will enable people to build and extend on Shopify and access the absolutely enormous pool of businesses and products using Shopify. That I think is that's the main announcement around the sort of agentic storefronts. With the catalogs API plus the checkout MCP, you can build an entire purchase process within an AI chat agent. So a customer can discover your product and check out all within the same place, and that order would then flow into Shopify, obviously marked as from said AI channel, but in the same way that every other order would flow in, no matter where the customer purchased from within Shopify.
Yeah, that will make sense. I think what will be really interesting is to see how the commercial side of that develops, with particularly kind of OpenAI and Shopify. And I don't expect you to comment on that. But yeah, if the kind of transactions are going through OpenAI and Stripe is powering that, I think it'll be really interesting to see how that partnership evolves. But James, I'll let you ask the next question.
Yeah, I wanted to get into to Sidekick Pulse. So I know plenty of retailers who are starting to use Sidekick a bit more. Those who still don't quite yet know how you can use it and where the boundaries are of what you can't do. And that is obviously over time, Shopify is increasing the capability and I guess the data connectivity of what Sidekick can access and do. But I'm really intrigued by Pulse because the positioning is proactively research your store and generate personalized recommendation based on store's data, which is where loads of people are expecting tooling to go. It's that intelligence piece overlaid of, can you do X for me? And it ties into, I think, a general trend of platforms being able to do more that previously people needed, like web ops or dev people, to do for them, which frees up the hours you have with agencies to do tasks that non-technical staff can do. So I'd love to hear, I've got two questions. Number one is about, what is the overall vision of Sidekick Pulse? Is this really about empowering teams to be able to do more themselves directly? Is that the fundamental strategic driver of it?
I think to answer this well, almost need to just take a step right back on core Shopify vision, make commerce better for everyone, right? As in the bit that you've heard a lot. One of the aspects of that is democratizing what businesses can do regardless of their size. And whereas before, this kind of thing, right, I suppose strategic recommendations and so on, the requirement that for a business to be able to get that would be enormous amounts of their own data or leveraging large-scale partnerships or whatever it was. Whereas now, and increasingly this will grow, is Shopify will be able to, with our enormous data set, be able to deliver refined recommendations to a business no matter their size. And I think that's I find that particularly exciting, to be honest. We saw it with, there's the other bit which we may or may not talk about with SimGym and what that does in terms of unlocking for businesses of all sizes, unlocking the ability to sort of test and learn. And I think Pulse is a great example of that. I am sure there will be enormous value, particularly as it evolves, for businesses of larger businesses as well. And I think straight out of the gates, for all of our smaller businesses, that is super exciting too, because suddenly you'll get these strategic recommendations that before you'd have been prohibited from in some way.
Yeah, and I'll come back onto Sidekick and some of its more, I guess, functional capabilities and how it can work now with Flow in a bit. But yeah, I was interested. Do you have any specific examples of the type of recommendations where I guess the model's being trained on and where it's focused on initially? Because there are so many data points in a store. Is Pulse focused on a specific set of challenges? Or is it literally, it will look at any data point within the store and come back with a recommendation?
Do you know what? I don't know. I don't know the sort of the breadth of what it currently has access to. I think what we'll initially see is I suppose the kind of here is some data on potentially unlocking a new channel, and some thoughts about this. The other thing we've talked about is the quick wins on configuration challenges.
Hmm.
Right? So we're seeing stuff where, rather than a business has complex shipping rules across multiple international regions, at the moment, you need to be going through and checking individually, whereas with Pulse, like some of the results we've seen quite quickly is Pulse can pick that out for you and say, maybe there's a conflict in your shipping regions here, and there's a potential revenue unlock for resolving it in this way, or actually, I don't know, you're accidentally serving free shipping here. Did you mean to? Although those kind of things, I see that as being a really exciting piece.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess where the evolution of this, the potential is that ability to proactively flag things where there are admin issues as well, like broken flows, or errors within a store which you might miss if you're reliant manually on picking those up. You could have it like meta objects or meta field data issues and conflicts. I think anything where businesses are proactively being surfaced information that they can fix quickly rather than suddenly discover it or realize it when customers phoned up and said there's an issue.
And there's, of course, like the shiny thing and really exciting, is, and the fun stuff that people want to hear is like all of the new areas where they could open up new business avenues and whatever that Pulse might be able to recommend. But actually, probably the sort of the real value, or like tangible value for businesses, is all of those quick wins like you've talked about, where you can quickly solve operational inefficiencies and quickly solve things that might just be costing you in time or money. And you can just incrementally chip away at those like that. I'm quite excited for like the real world value of that.
Yeah, do you know I was chatting with somebody the other day, and I really like Sidekick. It's helped me massively when I could be on a particular part of the admin and I want to quickly reference a product variant, for example, that I need because I'm linking it in a meta field somewhere, and I'm like, do you know what? I'll just Sidekick that. There's some really good things where it's small annoyances where you have to open up another screen which are resolved instantly. The bit where I think there's so much value, and I know you're extending the data connectivities every single time, is things like the ability to write data into meta objects and like entries where you can just suddenly go, right, I want to upload a list of 60 items and I want you to automatically create all my meta object entries for me. The potential as well for it to automate even more tasks going forward is quite significant.
To let you in on a bit of a secret in my role, I have to admit that one of my I often get asked sort of fairly detailed questions about Shopify capability or how something in Shopify works or how you set something up. One of my main go-tos now is Sidekick in my test environment, because, like you said, it is getting so good at understanding specific nuances of how to use Shopify and so on. And for setting up demo environments, if I'm showing a new business Shopify, using that for spinning up data, it speeds things up enormously.
Yeah, I've been using it a lot on my own demo store, and then that in conjunction with the AI, like in the New Horizons themes, the AI block generators, to then create a proof of concept to demonstrate to a client in my theme editor. I was like, well, I don't have developers and I don't want to spend money on this. I want to use it and it doesn't have to be perfect. And actually, proof of concept is great. Well, yeah, fair enough. That makes perfect sense.
Great. And next question. So sticking with Sidekick, and I can imagine, this will continue to be a big focus in this style of episode for a long time. One of the big things that was kind of demonstrated in the videos and shown throughout the kind of Renaissance landing page was the ability to use Sidekick to use the admin API and kind of build out an app, for example. Can you talk us through kind of how good this is at the moment, essentially, and realistically how viable it is without developers and any potential implications? And I guess, how far you see that going?
Yeah, and so personally, the two bits around Sidekick that I have been most excited about in these updates is the ability to create flows, because I think Shopify Flow is an enormously underutilized value add within the Shopify toolset, and this will just unlock that further. But then also, like you said, the ability to create admin UI apps is a really exciting first step on what I think is going to be quite an enormously valuable journey. So at the moment, you can build, you can get Shopify Sidekick to build you a UI extension within the admin, which can do things like add additional complexity to a product. For example, I think that there was a bundling solution that was demonstrated for building out sort of complex bundling management within the admin UI. But if you think about this piece where with a natural language prompt, you can build an extension to Shopify that is hosted by Shopify and adds additional complexity and additional capability within the system. The bit that comes next is, I think, super exciting, right? So the moment we unlock it to not only be able to build admin UI, but also be able to build, I don't know, say POS UI extensions and extend that capability in there. And then, of course, anything that can interface with front end and so on. I think and functions, like I think the scope here of what will come probably very quickly, considering how fast we've seen the evolution that has got us to this point. Like we all only heard about ChatGPT at the start of 2023, I want to say, something like that. So not even 3 years ago. So I think that is the area that I'm particularly excited about. In terms of like how good it actually is, I know we have people who are already who are working with it successfully. I think just like everything AI, there will be a natural limit where actually, complexity beyond that, you'd still want to be leveraging like partnerships or internal technology teams or whatever. But it's really exciting as like get a proof of concept up and running quickly, get additional capability out of the door.
And you talked about Flow, and Flow is a tool that I've been quite blown away by what you can do, and actually how agencies are stretching it to do things that previously would require lots of like custom development work. I've got a client who created a flow that when a bundle was in a basket, it had to be unpacked into its component SKUs, and then it was able to calculate all sorts of like discount apportioning and round and roll. It's quite insane how the code was executed. The question I've got about this is Sidekick and Flow now connected. How complex can Sidekick get with writing to flows? Because can Sidekick write code into flows, or is it more about using Flow's core capability of like conditions and rules? Because I think that's where developers can add massive value into the Flow piece, is their ability to control the code integrity of the scripts or the JavaScript, for example, that gets inputted. So I'd love to know about where that's at.
I mean, this is like the answer to this is almost like a broad AI question, in that like the scope is there for it to do it. Whether it does what you say or not is probably down to the quality of the prompt, and I don't know, maybe a bit of sheer luck in the world of AI of like, how does it work that time when you ask it? But the key thing, I suppose, is with everything that we're building around AI capability into Shopify, we are building that you interface with the LLM, it drafts for you, and you can then go ahead and keep refining, and you can then access the thing it's drafted to customize to your needs. And that's really important, because if we sort of put it in a box where the only way of interfacing with what it built was through continually refining the prompt, then when you do find a limit, it would be a prohibitive one. Whereas now you build, you interface, you refine to the point that you can with the LLM, and if there's additional complexity that you do just need an expert developer to just go and take you that final step, then that's all built out and ready to go. In terms of its actual core capability of how well can it write code, I think that's to be determined, and also an area that will just get better and better very quickly.
But I think that's a really nice call out, actually, because we all know that in our industry there are hype elements, right? Where it's like AI and agentic is going to replace everything. You don't need developers, and we all know that's just fundamentally not true. And that code in the hands of people without technical knowledge and due diligence is very, very dangerous and could cause other problems. So I think this is a really nice call out. As I was having a chat with a few agencies, and someone provocatively said, developers aren't needed, right? And it's like, well, actually, what it's doing is it's increasing the value of developers' expertise and enabling them to focus on more value add development work rather than the I guess the easier code to execute, and the things that aren't so exciting for a experienced developer to work on.
Yeah, well, yeah, probably the stuff that no one wants to be doing anyway, right? So that, yeah, absolutely, totally agree. And I suppose there's a reason we called Sidekick and not, I don't know. So this is where my marketing capability falls down, but like some kind of like leader, whatever. The whole vision for AI is this is a tool that can just amplify everything a human can do and allow you to go faster, not replace.
Well, I'm really looking forward to use this in anger because I have a project at the moment where I've identified a need for a few flows, and one of them is about when somebody's abandoned a checkout, that you wait for 48 hours because that's when the emails are going out. Then after the 48 hours, if there hasn't been an order, so the count of orders I think condition is 0, then create a ticket in Gorgeous for that customer for the telesales, but over an order threshold. And I've looked at it conceptually, it works. So the triggers and conditions are there. But I'm not experienced enough, I guess, technically in Flow. But with Sidekick now, I've got a fun scenario to start building that out, but also knowing that I have an expert set of devs there to tune it if I've got it slightly off.
Yeah, well, I'm keen to hear how you get on. That sounds amazing.
And I think the reason why we want to do this podcast for you is to hear from your side what the intention are, where you're seeing this being used. And actually, I think it's giving people more tools to get further down the line themselves and free up that dev resource to focus on delivering things of more value. So yeah, I really like that.
Exactly. And if you think of Flow, enormously powerful, and with that you can get yourself stuck in a rabbit hole with building things, and of course it's a lot of configuration at times, and this is where it, like exactly as he said, like it allows someone with different levels of technical capability to go a lot further before requiring expert intervention, and that's I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I also saw there's some announcements around improved capabilities in like theme editing, image manipulation. One of the ones I'm randomly pulling this out because I think it's actually really quite useful. And often what you get small, really useful things that kind of get lost amongst the big stories in these big releases. But I thought the wide mode capability is great because one of the things in like image manipulation and editing is when you have side panels open, then it gets much harder to visualize easily. So I'd love to know, is this something that's already live? This is just part of the nature. It's not a coming soon.
I'm going to check on whether it's live or not. I think it is. I think that's something we rolled out with additions, but I'm going to confirm. But I totally agree with you. I think this is an area where it's almost like a graduation moment of Sidekick is now ready to be the vast proportion of the interface in certain moments of Shopify. So that's quite a key moment. Like, had we done that when Sidekick first launched, right, and it was sort of very early in terms of AI capability, had we said, well, here you go, have it full screen, it would have probably been overkill. Whereas now, like you've just described, there are moments where Sidekick being a side panel on the admin was actually limiting because you needed it to take up more space because of the capability that it has inherently. So in terms of where it's going, I think we'll see that more and more. We'll see more and more that users will have it in wide mode for big tasks that are being completed, and then of course you fold it away for the next task that you're doing, or close it entirely. But yeah, I'd see that very much as it's a graduation moment in many ways. So I'm glad you called it out, and I agree with you. Often, especially us maybe sort of slightly more slightly more technical or into the detail of Shopify's capabilities, often the bits that I get most excited about within Shopify Editions are the ones that take up very little space in the website itself as you scroll through, but we know have enormous potential for a few key use cases that we've been working on with the businesses we work with.
So the next one, and I think this kind of probably falls into that category a little bit, but more for merchants. So one of the things within Sidekick that was mentioned was kind of things like the ability to very quickly build a collection and, like auto-populate products within that collection via prompts. I think it's probably about 3 weeks ago, James, we did that episode. I can't even remember what the episode was focused on, but we talked a bit around the Liquid AI partnership and maybe some of the possible reasoning for that. And something that I said at the time was that I felt Shopify probably wanted to have more visibility over what's happening within the product grid search recommendations, because at the moment, if you're using an Algolia or Tagalese or advanced commerce, a lot of that stuff is happening client side, and Shopify don't have the data. And I personally would feel like that would be a really important part of this. I guess in terms of that kind of optimization via Sidekick, like where do you see that going in the kind of short and medium term future?
I mean, there are two separate parts here, right? One is Sidekick. Sidekick is the operational aspect for helping you create the content, so spinning up collections, and in terms of, I think that's like just helping an operator to speed up rolling out. If they've got 20 new collections to put together because there's a new product line or whatever, that task has got a lot quicker and more straightforward. Right, so that's aspect one. That's the win there. The other aspect is what you're talking about with merchandising, and I suppose dynamic merchandising to a user based on, and all of that is an area where it's a whole nother product line that Shopify is building out all the time. Like with our sort of search and discovery capabilities, that tooling and that tool set, and there maybe weren't sort of big announcements within this Shopify Editions, but in terms of, I don't know how much you've seen it be used recently, but it's the capability of it is getting better all the time. And of course, this goes back to if you think of the scale of Shopify's data set as well across the millions of merchants on the platform, there's an enormous amount of data for it to learn from, to then be able to deliver dynamic merchandising to a customer, depending on all of the different variables that they might be carrying at the time.
Nice. I really like the community aspect of the Sidekick prompts, that you can share them, which is great, because I think this is where a lot of ecosystems are evolving to, is where you have something useful, that ability to then make it. It kind of comes back to the principles of open source, which is quite interesting. That we've created something that's not commercially sensitive. It will help other people we know. Here you go. And I guess especially if you're in something like a large agency group, which is relevant to you now, Paul, then you have like 5 or 6 different agencies, and somebody creates something really smart in one. The ability to make that open to the pool is really, really useful. So I like that. One thing you flagged to us actually before we started talking, and it's not I've forgotten about it, it's just that we spent so much time talking about Agentic, Sidekick, that we completely overlooked it. And you're right to flag it, it's the SimGym app, which, again, obviously a marketing colleague has come up with a nice alliterative name for this. I'll take it they didn't ask you for the naming on this, Ben.
No, it would have been at least 30% worse had they. So I'm glad they didn't.
So this is about, I guess this will be interesting to anybody. This is ability to simulate shopper behavior, but not just random shopper behavior that's been built off the back of how your store actually works and how people are shopping across your store, so that when you are building new capability, you can simulate users against that to see if there are any issues or flaws. Now, I've not had a chance to get into reading up in the full detail, but I'd love to. Can you expand on this? Like, how does it work? what tech do you need? Any technical skills to use it, or can any business user run simulations?
So I think this is a phenomenal area of where AI tooling is bringing value, and it's a democratizing moment as well, right? So before SimGym, to run an A/B test and reach statistical significance, you'd have probably needed, I don't know, I've heard the benchmark of 100,000 monthly unique visitors to your site would allow you to run multivariate testing on this, right? So we've had those kind of benchmarks. That, as you can imagine, is really prohibitive to smaller businesses, and actually 100,000 like that you know that's getting quite large. So anyone underneath that would struggle to test quickly, learn and iterate, and build improvements into their site in a way that they were sure that there was going to be value, because they tested it and seen the outcome. The thing that SimGym does that I think is super exciting is it wraps in all of Shopify's enormous data set and the fact that we have tens of millions of unique customers browsing on Shopify sites all the time. We can learn user intent from all of that, and then democratize it and build it into SimGym. So as a business of any size, you can upload a front end design or a front end experience on a change to your front end. Run whatever we call it, the simulation. Run the test in SimGym. We use all of that data that we have across the rest of Shopify to I suppose make a very, very informed estimate of how a user will interface with it and what the winning variant of that will be. And I think we'll see for sure this is amazing for smaller businesses because of that democratizing moment and unlocking what was previously not accessible. But I think, to be honest, I think it's also something our bigger businesses are going to be using because there's such a vast amount of data there. It'll be such a quick way of just quickly validating whether a change is ready or not. And it might not be something you want to go through a full testing process with, like, I don't know what you call it, like an analog testing process. I don't know, that's not a phrase. But anyway, you know what I mean. And actually be able to just click go in SimGym and see what happens, I think will be very valuable.
Great. And then there were quite a few kind of things that came up in Renaissance or editions that were announced that aren't yet available. And two of the big ones were A/B testing capability and the Tinker app. Can you just talk us through kind of those and where you see value? Maybe just give us a bit of a view on when they may become available.
Yeah. So rollouts, the A/B testing capability, and actually it's particularly exciting because it's more than just A/B testing as well, because it's also scheduling capability. So rollouts will allow a business to schedule different changes across different parts of their international setup, as well as test between different effectively to be able to set percentages of traffic to different experiences, which therefore allows you to test them. So that as a foundation, I think you can see, like, I think you can kind of deduce where this is going to go now and the enormous value it's going to be able to bring to businesses on Shopify. The whole scheduling piece, like we've seen it a lot where businesses have needed to bring in a third-party CMS to manage particularly international scheduling. So I'm really excited for that piece in particular. A/B testing, like, amazing to get more of that into the platform itself. On timeline, we're in early access and are looking to move as fast as possible. I can't share any specific timelines for rollouts. And then the Tinker app, again, not one I can share timelines on. It's just incoming soon. However, Tinker is this is another moment of us trying to simplify all things entrepreneurism, I suppose, and democratise as well. Like at the moment, you can do all of the things that you could do in Tinker across lots of different tools. And that might require you to have different subscriptions, might require you to have a load of different tooling and move assets between to whatever it is, create content or create images or edit images. I think the example that was shared in the promo video was a new business owner who they made a one-off product, took a picture of it, and then used Tinker to generate that product in a whole load of different scenarios, and even support with the whole marketing thing of setting up the initial business name and so on. And all of what Tinker does is wrap all of that into one place for a user. So it really is just I suppose an enormously simplifying system is the goal there. And of course, it's commerce focused, right? It is built for business owners and business users who are building in commerce, rather than it, a lot of the other tools they might have individual specialisms, but broadly they're sort of varying focuses. So that I think is where it's particularly exciting.
So sorry, just so make sure I've understood this, because I hadn't looked into. I saw Tinker and I thought, wow, I've read through about 2,500 updates. I might just have a break before I come back to that. If I'm an entrepreneur and I want to play around with a specific image editor that's doing turning my images into a video, is it proof of concept and so you can see what it does, or does it then allow you to push it into a store if you like it, or is it more just trialing to see what you can do?
So it wraps all of these different tools. So that, to take that example, right? You've got an image and you want to turn it into a video. At the moment, you would need to go to individual tools to try and maybe subscribe, upload it, get your video file out, and then upload it into your store. Tinker consolidates all of that in the sense that you will presumably have some kind of subscription to Tinker or have Tinker installed on your device. You will then be able to have a look at different image to video generators and look at some previews and get it to do it for you. And you'll then have the video file. In terms of long term, how it's going to be integrated into Shopify, I don't know. At the moment, it's standalone, at least in its initial thing. So you would output a video file that you could then upload into Shopify.
Okay, understood. Interesting. It's certainly an interesting addition. And I guess one final question, and for those listening, there'll be people who will be saying, well, hang a minute, we haven't covered lots of other stuff, but there's a reality that we did this on purpose because there's so much in additions that trying to cover everything would take about a day. But a question for you is, from your side, is there anything else that you want to highlight that you've been really excited by and that you think is interesting, but we've not touched on?
I mean, I think I agree with what you said. Like, there's no way it would have been the most boring podcast for us to just regurgitate everything that's in that edition. So I'm glad we kind of just focused on a couple of areas. One is, I would encourage everyone to go and have a look at the website, because even if you're not that fussed about the content, of which there is an enormous amount, from a creative and engineering perspective, the actual editions website is unbelievable. It is such an amazing experience. So I'd recommend that. It's really cool to just scroll through and see what the web can do, I suppose. And then the second piece, and I know this is me being maybe a little bit boring, but the POS hub, the hardware hub, as a piece of hardware that Shopify has pushed out, I think is really exciting, because we're seeing an enormous, I suppose, takeoff in businesses evaluating Shopify POS, and we're seeing it drive real value for a lot of businesses already. The whole connectivity thing, I was thinking about this. This is almost like our like hardware connectivity is almost like APIs for an online platform, right? It almost decides how much of a platform it is how connectable things are to it. That's obviously stating the obvious, but I think that this hardware piece, like the POS hub, is a real unlock there. And so I'm excited what that will mean for businesses evaluating POS and using POS in the ability to connect hardware in.
Excellent. Well, I hope, for people listening, I hope you found it interesting. We got a bit more time to deep dive into the AI and agentic pieces and Sidekick. If anyone wants to reach out to Ben and ask any more questions or wants to explore any specific use cases for this, then Ben's contact details are on the landing page. But just like myself and Paul, Ben is on LinkedIn as well, so I'm sure he'll be happy to for you to reach out and geek out on some of the elements of additions. But Ben, look, thanks for taking the time to jump on the pod again.
Thanks for having me.
And hope everyone's enjoyed the edition. Take care, everybody.